So today we're going to be discussing food and multiple sclerosis. And if you are interested in learning more about multiple sclerosis and maybe food, be sure to check us out on YouTube, Instagram, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So Jessie, food,
Yes.
food. Did your diagnosis change your attitude towards food?
Yes and no. So before I got my diagnosis, I was very aware of the food that I was consuming, mainly because I had other underlying conditions. I think it was like back in 2013, 2014. And I started having to cut out loads of different foods. I went veggie, then I was pescatarian, and now I'm vegan. But this was all prior to my diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
So to manage my symptoms of my other underlying conditions, I had to have a strict-ish diet. So when I got my MS diagnosis, it wasn't that I had to make any drastic changes, which I was quite grateful for, because the food that you consume is one of the things that they do ask you when you're getting your diagnosis, what kind of foods you're taking.
Right.
Yeah. And when I said that I had a vegan diet, they weren't too alarmed by it. They did want to make sure that I was consuming a B12 supplement. It wasn't that I had to make any drastic changes when I first got my diagnosis, but I was very grateful when I got my diagnosis that I had those changes already made to my diet, because obviously when you get your diagnosis, it's information overload. And there's loads of changes that you have to make. So having a solid diet, getting your diagnosis, was something that I was grateful that I didn't have to make too many changes on.
Right.
But I do feel that having that diet has helped me in my MS symptoms, just in terms of like energy levels and how I sleep, because I know if my diet, if I'm consuming the wrong foods, I can't sleep properly. I've no energy, even my mood and stuff. I'm very, very low, or my temper does be quite bad.
I feel
But
like just having like MS, we're very body sensitive. So we're very
yes,
keen to picking up when something is funky or something's wrong. So I know when I eat like junk, I feel like absolute garbage.
yeah.
What would you say that you mentioned there was a lot of change, or not so many changes because you already had such an established diet? What would you say was the most impactful change that you had to make?
I think I was more aware of the amount of takeaways that I was eating, because even things like Chinese's, which I love Chinese takeaways. They're unreal, but the Chinese over in Ireland, and I think it's the same in the UK, it's not very, very healthy. So things like that is something that I did begin to cut out. Again, the stuff that I was or the food that I was eating in Chinese takeaways was vegan, but it's absolutely brutal for you. So that was one of the things that I did change. I did try like not obsess too much about the level of vegetables I was eating, the level of fruit that I was eating, because I think you can kind of go down a rabbit hole.
I think it's good that you were already kind of established in that
Yeah.
plant-based diet prior. How did your doctors respond to this? Because usually, I mean, me personally, I was eating, and I still seldomly eat like a 12-year-old boy. So there was a lot of suggestions on my end coming from
Okay.
my doctor saying, whoa, yeah, that's not a good idea anymore. You should look at that. What
Yeah.
did your doctors say to you, because you already had this established plant-based diet?
So when I said I was vegan for the first time, there was a long pause, and I could see that they were trying to make some sort of correlation. They're like, is there some sort of correlation between being a vegan and having MS? But
Right.
there wasn't any major foods that they wanted me to consume more of or less of. The only thing that they did point out was the B12 supplement, because you get that from animal
Sure.
sources. And I think it's symptoms like lack of energy, pins and needles, that lack of B12 can give an individual. So they just wanted to make sure if I was, exhausted, or if I did have pins and needles, it wasn't a result of not having B12. It was a result of actually having MS. So that
Right.
was the main thing that they wanted to make sure that I was taking, along with vitamin D. But everyone, I think, has to take vitamin
Yep.
D if you have MS.
B12
But
and D. We love it
yeah,
all.
yeah.
Let me ask you this. Do you miss the Chinese food?
Yes. I will say I do have it. I still do have it occasionally. I do. I'm not going to deprive myself from it. but I just wouldn't have it every single week.
Right. Can you feel a difference when you do eat it though?
Oh yeah, massively. Yeah, it affects. So first of all, it's my mood that gets affected. I feel low. I feel agitated. I lose my temper more easily. Um, but then it's other things like my sleeping. I'm not sleeping that well, and even just my digestion and stuff that gets affected by the food that I'm consuming.
Yep.
Yeah, and then that all impacts my MS.
Yeah, understandably. What advice would you, Jesse, give to somebody that is newly diagnosed that may want to sort of tweak or alter their diet to better suit their MS symptoms?
So I don't think that there's a one kind of diet that suits every single person who has MS. I don't think there's any diet that suits people who don't have MS.
Anybody,
So
yeah, exactly. I
yeah,
agree.
so I don't think it's a case that, if you have MS, follow this diet and you'll be absolutely 10 out of 10. But I think my best advice is to listen to what your consultant is saying, but also, the advice that you're given by your consultant, it's not always going to be what works for you, because again, the diet that your consultant might give to you, that might not suit you. Like, if now, I know they say things like dairy and stuff probably isn't great, but like, let's say dairy was good for MS and you have a dairy intolerance, you're not just going to start consuming dairy just because you're told it's good for you if you can't tolerate it.
So we've learned a lot today about diet and multiple sclerosis, and I think Jesse made a lot of really valuable points. But in the end of the day, you have to make the best decision for your body, and it's not going to be a one size fits all. But if you're interested in learning more about MS, be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss a video. Hit that bell.